The smell of grease and motor oil had become Derek Quinn's cologne, worn whether he wanted it or not, seeping into his calloused hands no matter how many times he scrubbed them raw with that grainy orange soap at the end of his shifts. He stood now in the AutoZone parking lot on a muggy Tuesday afternoon, his 6-year-old daughter Maya chattering beside him about the butterflies she had seen at school that day, her small hand tucked safely in his much larger one. Derek listened with half his attention while mentally calculating whether he could afford both the groceries on his list and the new work boots he desperately needed. The answer, as usual, was no. Maya tugged his hand. "Daddy, are you listening? Mrs. Henderson said monarchs fly all the way to Mexico. That's really far, right?" "That's incredibly far, sweetheart," Derek said, squeezing her hand gently. "Those are some tough little butterflies. Like us," Maya said with the kind of simple confidence only a 6-year-old could muster. "We're tough too." Derek's heart clenched. His daughter shouldn't have to think about being tough. She should just get to be a kid. But ever since the divorce 2 years ago, when his ex-wife had decided motherhood wasn't for her and moved to California with barely a backward glance, it had been just the two of them against the world. His job as a mechanic at Jerry's auto shop paid enough to keep them housed and fed, but barely. There was nothing left over for extras, and sometimes not even for necessities. As they crossed the parking lot toward his beat-up Ford pickup, Derek noticed a woman standing beside a sleek silver Audi, staring down at a very flat rear tire with an expression that somehow mixed frustration and bewilderment. She was dressed in a navy blue business suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent, her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she was tapping at her phone with increasing agitation. Derek should have walked past. He was tired, his back ached from being hunched over engine blocks all day, and Maya needed dinner. But his mama had raised him better than that, and some instincts ran too deep to ignore. "Stay right here, Maya," he said, guiding her to sit on the curb. "Don't move from this spot, okay?" "I'm going to help that lady." Maya nodded obediently, swinging her scuffed sneakers and humming to herself. Derek approached the woman, who hadn't noticed him yet, too focused on her phone. "Excuse me, madam. Looks like you could use some help." The woman looked up, and Derek found himself momentarily caught by her eyes, a striking shade of green that reminded him of sea glass. She looked to be around his age, maybe 30 or 31, with fine features that would have been conventionally beautiful even without the expensive clothes and the aura of polish that surrounded her. "Oh, thank God," she said, relief flooding her face. "My roadside assistance is saying it'll be at least 2 hours, and I have a dinner I absolutely cannot miss. Do you know anything about cars?" Derek almost laughed. "Yes, madam, I'm a mechanic. I can change this for you if you've got a spare." "Really? You would do that?" The woman's whole demeanor shifted, tension draining from her shoulders. "That would be amazing. I'm Tessa, by the way, Tessa Porter." "Derek Quinn," he said, already moving to look at the tire. "And yeah, it's no problem. Pop your trunk for me." Tessa did, revealing a pristine trunk space with a spare tire that had clearly never been used. Derek made quick work of locating the jack and lug wrench, his experienced hands moving through familiar motions. This was what he was good at, what he knew. Cars made sense in a way the rest of his life often didn't. "You're a lifesaver, Derek," Tessa said, watching him work with obvious appreciation. "I'm so sorry to impose. Can I pay you? I really need to make this dinner. It's for work and I'm already cutting it close." "No need," Derek said, loosening the lug nuts with practiced efficiency. "Just helping out a neighbor. Are you sure? That doesn't seem fair to you." Derek glanced over at Maya, who was still sitting obediently on the curb, now making a game of counting cars. "My little girl's watching." "Good to show her that people help each other, you know? Don't need money for that." Tessa followed his gaze, and her expression softened. "She's beautiful. How old?" 6. First grade. Derek felt the familiar swell of pride that always came when talking about Maya. She was the best thing he had ever done, would ever do. Smartest kid in her class, if you ask me, though I might be biased. I doubt you're biased, Tessa said, and something in her voice made Derek look up. She was smiling, but there was a wistfulness there too. You can usually tell when a parent really pays attention to their kids. She looks happy. Derek thought about the conversation he'd had with Maya's teacher last week about whether Maya qualified for the free lunch program. He thought about the fact that Maya's sneakers were a size too small but would have to last until he could scrape together enough for new ones. He thought about a lot of things, but then pushed them aside because Maya was happy, and that was what mattered. I try, he said simply, going back to work. He had the tire changed in less than 15 minutes, his hands working with the kind of efficiency that came from years of practice. When he stood up, wiping his hands on his already grimy jeans, Tessa was looking at him with something approaching awe. That was incredible, she said. You made that look so easy. It is easy when you know what you're doing, Derek said with a shrug. You're all set. Just get that tire patched or replaced when you get a chance, and don't forget to tighten the lug nuts again after driving about 50 miles. I won't forget, Tessa promised. She hesitated, then pulled out a business card from her purse. Look, I know you said you don't want payment, but please take this. If you ever need anything, or if I can return the favor somehow, I'd really like to. Derek took the card more out of politeness than any expectation he'd use it. He glanced at it briefly, registering the words Tessa Porter and CEO, Meridian Enterprises, before tucking it into his pocket. I appreciate it, but really, it was nothing. Have a good evening, Miss Porter. You too, Derek, and thank you again. Derek collected Maya and headed to his truck, already putting the encounter out of his mind. He had groceries to buy and dinner to make and homework to supervise. That was his reality, and chance meetings with wealthy businesswomen in parking lots were just blips, moments out of time that meant nothing in the grand scheme of things. Or so he thought. 3 days later, Derek was elbow-deep in the engine of a Honda Civic when Jerry, his boss, called him into the office. Jerry was a good guy, fair and honest, which was increasingly rare in the auto repair business. He had given Derek a job when Derek needed it most, right after the divorce, and had been flexible about sick days when Maya caught whatever bug was going around her school. Got something unusual for you, Jerry said, scratching his gray beard. Got a call from some fancy business place, Meridian something. They've got a whole fleet of company vehicles and their current service contract is up. They want to talk to us about taking over the maintenance. Derek raised his eyebrows. That's great, Jerry. Could be really good for business. Yeah, well, here's the weird part. The CEO herself is coming by today to check out the shop, wants to meet the mechanics, see the operation. Never had that happen before. Jerry looked both pleased and nervous. Anyway, I need you to be around. You're my best guy, and I want her to see we know what we're doing. Sure thing, Derek agreed, though he felt a flutter of anxiety. He wasn't good with impressive people, with schmoozing and corporate talk. He was good with his hands, with engines and transmissions, with things that had clear problems and clear solutions. 2 hours later, a familiar silver Audi pulled into the lot. Derek was washing his hands in the industrial sink when he saw her through the window. Tessa Porter, looking just as polished and professional as she had in the AutoZone parking lot, wearing a different suit, but carrying herself with the same confident grace. She was talking to Jerry, gesturing toward the garage bays, and then Jerry was pointing toward Derek. Their eyes met through the window, and Tessa's face lit up with recognition and what looked like genuine delight. Derek, she said as she entered the garage, her heels clicking on the concrete floor. I had no idea this was your shop. It's Jerry's shop, Derek corrected, but he couldn't help the small smile that tugged at his lips. I just work here. He's being modest, Jerry said, beaming. Derek's the best mechanic I've got, fastest, most thorough, and the customers love him. Tessa was looking at Derek with an expression he couldn't quite read. I don't doubt that for a second. He helped me change a flat tire a few days ago and made it look effortless. That's how you two know each other. Jerry looked delighted by this coincidence. Well, small world. Very small, Tessa agreed. Her gaze hadn't left Derek. Jerry, would it be all right if Derek showed me around? Since I've already met him, I'd be interested in hearing his perspective on what you do here. Of course, Jerry said, practically shooing them off. Derek, give Miss Porter the full tour. Derek wiped his hands one more time and gestured for Tessa to follow him. As they walked through the garage, he found himself hyper-aware of her presence beside him, the subtle scent of her perfume cutting through the familiar smells of oil and metal. So you're a CEO, he said, leading her past the hydraulic lifts. That's impressive. And you're a master mechanic who helps strangers in parking lots, Tessa countered. That's impressive too. It's just a job. Don't do that, Tessa said, and there was a gentle firmness in her voice that made Derek look at her. Don't diminish what you do. I've been in business for 10 years, and I can tell you that genuine skill and genuine kindness are both rare. You have both. Derek felt heat creep up his neck. He wasn't used to compliments, especially not from women who looked like Tessa. I'm just doing what anyone would do. But most people don't, Tessa said. That's the whole point. They continued the tour, Derek explaining their diagnostic equipment, their parts inventory system, the certifications he and the other mechanics held. Tessa asked intelligent questions, and Derek found himself relaxing, falling into the comfortable rhythm of talking about something he understood deeply. She seemed genuinely interested, not just going through the motions, and when he explained a particularly complex repair they had completed last week, her eyes lit up with real fascination. You love this, she observed. Working with cars. I do, Derek admitted. There's something satisfying about it. Something's broken and you figure out why and then you fix it. Not a lot of ambiguity. I wish business were that straightforward, Tessa said with a slight laugh. Most of my problems don't have clear solutions. What kind of business is Meridian Enterprises? We do logistics and supply chain management, Tessa explained. Basically, we help companies figure out how to get their products from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. I started the company 8 years ago, right out of business school. It's been a lot of long days and late nights, but we've grown faster than I ever imagined. That's incredible, Derek said, and meant it. Starting your own company takes guts. So does being a single parent, Tessa said quietly. That takes even more guts. Derek met her eyes, surprised she remembered that detail from their brief conversation. We do what we have to do. How's your daughter, Maya, right? You remembered her name? Of course I did. Tessa smiled. How is she? She's great. She's doing a project on butterflies for school right now. I've learned more about monarch migration patterns this week than I ever thought I'd know. The warmth in Tessa's expression made something shift in Derek's chest. Before he could examine that feeling too closely, Jerry appeared, looking hopeful and expectant. So, Miss Porter, what do you think? Can we handle your fleet maintenance? I think you can, Tessa said, her professional demeanor sliding back into place. I'll have my operations manager reach out next week to discuss terms. I was impressed by what I saw here today. That's wonderful, just wonderful, Jerry said, pumping her hand enthusiastically. We won't let you down. I'm sure you won't, Tessa said. She turned to Derek. Thank you for the tour, Derek. It was really good to see you again. You too, Derek said, and was surprised to realize he meant it. After she left, Jerry clapped Derek on the shoulder. This could be huge for us, Derek. A corporate account like that, steady work, reliable payments. Maybe I'll finally be able to give you that raise you deserve. Derek's heart leaped. A raise would mean so much. New shoes for Maya. Maybe even being able to sign her up for the dance class she'd been asking about. That would be amazing, Jerry. Well, we've got to seal the deal first, but I've got a good feeling about this. Jerry headed back to his office, whistling. Derek returned to the Honda Civic, but his mind wasn't entirely on his work. He kept thinking about the way Tessa had looked at him, the genuine interest in her questions, the softness in her expression when she'd asked about Maya. He told himself he was being ridiculous. Women like Tessa Porter didn't date guys like him. She probably had suitors lined up around the block, sophisticated men with college degrees and expense accounts. But that night, after Maya was asleep, Derek found himself pulling Tessa's business card out of his wallet, where he had transferred it from his jeans pocket. He studied it in the dim light of his living room, running his thumb over the embossed lettering. Then, feeling foolish, he put it back. The following week, Meridian Enterprises vehicles started arriving at Jerry's auto shop. They had a fleet of about 20 cars and vans, all requiring regular maintenance. It was good, steady work, exactly the kind of reliable income the shop needed. Derek found himself working on Meridian vehicles frequently, and each time he did, he thought about Tessa. He wondered if she was in one of the offices he passed when he drove through the city. He wondered if she remembered him, or if he had just been a momentary blip in her busy life, a good deed opportunity, and nothing more. 3 weeks after their reunion at the shop, Derek was picking Maya up from after-school care when his truck gave an ominous sputter and then died completely. Right in the middle of traffic. With cars honking behind him and Maya looking worried in the passenger seat, Derek managed to get the truck rolled into a parking lot, his mechanic's instincts already diagnosing the problem. Transmission. It had been on its last legs for months, and he had been coaxing it along, but apparently it had finally given up the ghost. "Is the truck broken, Daddy?" Maya asked in a small voice. "Yeah, sweetheart, it is." Derek pulled out his phone, calculating options. A tow would cost money he didn't have. Jerry might let him use the shop after hours to fix it himself, but he'd still need to get the truck there, and he'd need parts. The numbers weren't adding up right in his head. Without really thinking about it, he pulled up his contacts. He had added Tessa's number to his phone from her business card, telling himself it was just professional networking. His thumb hovered over her name for a long moment before he shook his head and started to dial Jerry instead. But then Maya said, "Daddy, I'm hungry," in that patient way she had that broke his heart because she never complained, never demanded, just quietly stated needs and trusted him to handle them. And Derek thought about how it would be dark soon, and cold, and Maya had already been at school since 7 that morning. He pressed Tessa's name before he could talk himself out of it. She answered on the second ring. "This is Tessa Porter. Miss Porter, this is Derek Quinn." "I'm sorry to bother you. I know this is probably your work phone and you're busy." "Derek." Her voice immediately warmed. "It's not a bother at all. Is everything okay?" "My truck broke down," Derek admitted, feeling foolish and embarrassed and desperate all at once. "I'm a mechanic whose truck broke down, which is like a chef whose kitchen caught fire. I've got my daughter with me and I wasn't sure who else to call. I know it's a lot to ask, but is there any chance you could help us get home? I can pay for gas, and I'll figure out the truck situation tomorrow." "Where are you?" Tessa asked immediately, no hesitation. Derek gave her the address of the parking lot they were stranded in. "I'm 15 minutes away. Sit tight, okay? I'll be right there." She arrived in 12 minutes. Derek watched the silver Audi pull into the parking lot, and Tessa emerged wearing dark slacks and a cream-colored blouse, her hair loose around her shoulders this time. She looked slightly less corporate and somehow even more beautiful. "Thank you so much for this," Derek said as she approached. "I really appreciate it." "Stop thanking me," Tessa said with a smile. "You helped me when I needed it. I'm just returning the favor." She looked past him to where Maya was peering out of the truck window. "Hi there, you must be Maya." Maya scrambled out of the truck, her shyness forgotten in the excitement of a new person. "Hi, are you Daddy's friend?" "I think so," Tessa said, glancing at Derek with a smile that made his stomach do something strange. "Your dad was really nice to me when my car had a flat tire." "Daddy's always nice," Maya said matter-of-factly. "He helps people because it's the right thing to do." "He certainly does," Tessa agreed. "Come on, let's get you two home." Maya chattered the entire drive, telling Tessa about her butterfly project, about her teacher Mrs. Henderson, about the book she was reading, about everything and nothing in the way only 6-year-olds can. Derek tried to shush her a few times, worried she was being annoying, but Tessa seemed genuinely engaged, asking questions and laughing at my stories. When they pulled up to Derek's apartment complex, a modest 2-story building in a working-class neighborhood, Derek felt a flush of embarrassment. The place was clean and safe, but it was a far cry from the kind of lifestyle Tessa probably led. "Thank you again," he said as they got out. "Really, this was incredibly kind of you. Derek, I'm happy to help." Tessa hesitated, then said, "Look, I know this might be forward, but have you eaten dinner yet?" "We were going to make spaghetti," Maya volunteered. "I love spaghetti," Tessa said. "Would it be okay if I joined you?" "I'd really like to." Derek opened his mouth to politely decline, because surely Tessa had better things to do than eat budget pasta in his cramped apartment. But Maya was already grabbing Tessa's hand, saying, "Yes, please come. Daddy makes the best sauce." And Tessa was looking at him with an expression of genuine hope, as if spending the evening with him and his daughter was something she actually wanted rather than an obligation. "Okay," Derek heard himself say. "Yeah, that would be nice." They climbed the stairs to his second-floor apartment. Derek unlocked the door and ushered them inside, trying to see the place through Tessa's eyes. The furniture was old but clean. The walls were bare except for Maya's drawings, taped up with loving care. Toys were organized in bins in the corner. It was a home, humble but filled with love. "This is lovely," Tessa said, and she sounded like she meant it. She gravitated toward the wall of drawings. "Maya, did you do all of these?" "Uh-huh," Maya said proudly. "Daddy says I'm going to be a famous artist someday." I think he might be right. While Derek started preparing dinner, chopping onions and garlic with practiced efficiency, Maya showed Tessa her room, her toys, her books. He could hear them talking, hear Maya's delighted giggles and Tessa's warm responses, and something in his chest loosened. This was nice. This felt right in a way he hadn't expected. Tessa returned to the kitchen and, without asking, started helping, setting the table and finding plates in the cabinets like she belonged there. They moved around each other comfortably, and Derek found himself telling her about the truck, about the transmission problem, about his plan to fix it himself over the weekend. "You work 6 days a week at the shop," Tessa said. "When do you rest?" "When Maya goes to college," Derek joked, but Tessa didn't laugh. "You need to take care of yourself too, Derek." "I'm fine," he said automatically. "Really?" They ate dinner together, the three of them crowded around Derek's small kitchen table. The spaghetti was nothing fancy, just pasta and a simple tomato sauce with ground beef. But Tessa ate like it was a gourmet meal, praising the food and asking for seconds. Maya basked in the attention, telling more stories, making Tessa laugh with her observations about the world. After dinner, while Derek cleaned up, Maya convinced Tessa to read her a bedtime story. Derek listened from the kitchen as Tessa read Where the Wild Things Are, with different voices for each character, making Maya giggle and squeal with delight. His heart felt too big for his chest. When Maya was finally tucked into bed, Derek and Tessa sat on his worn couch with mugs of coffee. The apartment was quiet, the kind of comfortable quiet that usually only happened with old friends. "Thank you for dinner," Tessa said. "I can't remember the last time I had a home-cooked meal that wasn't catered at a work event. It was just spaghetti." "It was more than that," Tessa said softly. "It was family dinner. It was warmth and care and love. That's not something you can buy, Derek." "You're welcome here anytime," Derek said and meant it. "Really, you've been so kind to us." "I like spending time with you," Tessa said. "Both of you. Maya's wonderful and you're—" She paused, seeming to search for words. "You're real, you're genuine. In my world, that's rare." "I'm not anything special," Derek said. "Why do you keep saying that?" Tessa turned to face him more fully on the couch. "You're a skilled tradesman, a devoted father, a kind person. Those things are special." Derek didn't know what to say to that. The way Tessa was looking at him made him feel exposed and seen in equal measure. "Can I ask you something?" Tessa said, "and you can tell me if I'm overstepping." "Okay." Maya's mother. "Is she in the picture at all?" Derek's jaw tightened reflexively, the way it always did when he thought about his ex-wife. No. She decided pretty quickly after Maya was born that motherhood wasn't what she wanted. We tried to make it work for a few years, but she was miserable, and that made all of us miserable. She moved to California 2 years ago, sends a birthday card sometimes. Maya doesn't really remember her. "I'm sorry," Tessa said quietly. "That must have been hard." "The hardest part is knowing Maya deserves better. She deserves a mom who wants her, who loves her. Instead, she's got just me." "Derek, look at me." Tessa waited until he met her eyes. "Maya is one of the happiest, most well-adjusted children I've ever met. That's because of you, because you love her enough for 2 parents. Don't sell yourself short." Something in Derek cracked a little at that, some defensive wall he kept up against the world. "Thank you," he said, his voice rougher than usual. "That means a lot." They talked for hours that night, long after they should have said goodnight. Tessa told him about starting her company, about the struggles and setbacks, about the loneliness of being at the top. Derek told her about growing up in a working-class family, about learning to fix cars from his uncle, about the dreams he used to have before life got in the way. They talked about movies and music and books, discovering shared loves and good-natured disagreements. Finally, close to midnight, Tessa reluctantly said she should go. Derek walked her to her car, the night air cool against his skin. "I had a really wonderful time tonight," Tessa said, lingering by her driver's side door. "The best time I've had in longer than I can remember." "Me too," Derek admitted. "Could we do this again? Maybe I could take you and Maya out somewhere, dinner or the zoo or anything really." "I'd just like to see you both again." Derek's first instinct was to say no, to protect himself from the inevitable disappointment when Tessa realized they lived in different worlds. But then he thought about how she had looked at Maya, at the genuine affection in her eyes. He thought about how comfortable the evening had felt, how right. "Yeah," he said, "I'd like that." Tessa's smile was radiant. "Good, I'll call you." She did call the very next day, and the day after that. A pattern emerged over the following weeks. Tessa would find reasons to visit the shop, stopping by to check on her company's vehicles, but always making time to say hello to Derek. They would text throughout the day, little messages about nothing and everything. Tessa took Derek and Maya to the zoo, to a children's museum, to a nice restaurant where Maya tried escargot and declared it slimy but okay. Derek found himself falling, slowly and surely, like a leaf drifting toward the ground in autumn. He tried to tell himself it was impossible, that he was setting himself up for heartbreak. But Tessa made it hard to remember all the reasons this shouldn't work. She fit into their lives so naturally, like a puzzle piece they hadn't known was missing. Maya adored her. She would light up whenever Tessa came around, would chatter about Miss Tessa for hours after she left. And Tessa seemed to genuinely love spending time with Maya, never treating her like an obligation or an inconvenience. But Derek worried. He worried about what would happen when Tessa got bored of slumming it with a mechanic. He worried about Maya getting attached to someone who might leave. He worried about 100 different things in the quiet hours of the night. 6 weeks after that first dinner at his apartment, Tessa invited them to her house. Derek had been curious about where she lived, and the answer turned out to be a beautiful modern home in one of the nicer suburbs, all clean lines and large windows. It was elegant but not ostentatious, decorated with warm colors and comfortable furniture. "This is beautiful," Derek said, trying not to feel out of place. "Thank you. I bought it 3 years ago. It's more space than I need, honestly, but I like the idea of having room to grow." Tessa smiled at Maya. "Maya, would you like to see the backyard? There's a swing set out there." "You have a swing set?" Maya's eyes went wide. "I do. The previous owners left it. I've been hoping a kid would come over to use it." While Maya explored the backyard under their watchful eyes from the patio, Derek and Tessa sat together on her outdoor furniture. The evening was warm, the sky painted in shades of orange and pink as the sun set. "This is really nice," Derek said. "The house, the yard, all of it." "It's lonely sometimes," Tessa admitted. "I threw myself into building my company for so long that I forgot to build a life. And now I'm 31 years old, successful by most measures, but I go home to an empty house every night." She glanced at him. "Until recently." Derek's heart started beating faster. "Tessa, I know this is complicated," she said quickly. "I know we come from different worlds, and I know you're protective of Maya, as you should be. But Derek, I need you to know that this isn't casual for me. You're not casual for me. These past few weeks have been the happiest I've been in years, maybe ever." Derek wanted to believe it. God, he wanted to believe it so badly. "I'm not what you should want," he said. "I'm a mechanic who lives in a cramped apartment and drives a broken truck. I can't take you to fancy restaurants or give you the kind of life you're used to." "I don't want fancy restaurants," Tessa said, her voice intense. "I want more evenings eating spaghetti at your kitchen table. I want to hear about my butterfly project. I want to listen to you talk about cars because you light up when you do. I want the real thing, Derek, not some polished version of a life. I want what you and Maya have. And what's that? Love, family, home." Tessa reached for his hand and Derek let her take it. "I know it's fast. I know it's scary. But I'm falling for you, Derek, for both of you, and I need to know if there's any chance you might feel the same way." Derek looked out at Maya, swinging back and forth with her face turned up to the sky, carefree and joyful. He thought about all the reasons this was a bad idea. Then he thought about how Tessa had shown up when he called, no questions asked. How she had read bedtime stories with silly voices. How she looked at him like he was someone worth looking at. "I'm terrified," he admitted. "I haven't dated anyone since my ex-wife. I've been so focused on taking care of Maya that I forgot I might want something for myself too. But yeah, Tessa, I feel the same way. I think I've been falling for you since that day in the Auto Zone parking lot." Tessa's smile was worth every risk. She leaned in slowly, giving him time to pull away, but Derek didn't pull away. He met her halfway, their lips meeting in a kiss that was soft and sweet and perfect. It felt like coming home. Maya's voice rang out from the yard. "Daddy, Miss Tessa, watch me swing high." They broke apart, both laughing softly, and turned their attention to Maya, who was indeed swinging impressively high, her legs pumping with determination. "I see you, sweetheart," Derek called. "That's amazing. Do you think Maya would be okay with this?" Tessa asked quietly. "With us?" "I think she'd be thrilled," Derek said honestly. "She talks about you all the time. She drew a picture of the three of us last week and hung it on the refrigerator. The three of us. Yeah, you, me, and her. She drew us holding hands." Tessa's eyes grew bright with what might have been tears. "Really? Really? But we should still tell her properly. She deserves to know what's happening." They told Maya that evening, sitting her down in Tessa's living room and explaining, in age-appropriate terms, that Derek and Tessa liked each other very much and wanted to spend more time together. Maya looked between them seriously, her small face thoughtful. Then she said, "Does that mean Miss Tessa is your girlfriend, Daddy? If she wants to be, yeah. And if you're okay with it," Tessa added quickly. "Your dad and I both want you to be comfortable with this." Maya considered for a moment longer, then broke into a huge grin. "Okay, can we have ice cream now?" Derek and Tessa both burst out laughing, the tension breaking. "Yes, we can have ice cream," Derek said, pulling his daughter into a hug. The next few months were a revelation. Derek had forgotten what it was like to be courted, to be wanted. Tessa brought him lunch at the shop, kissed him goodbye like it was the most natural thing in the world. She came to Maya's school concert and cheered louder than anyone else. She integrated herself into their lives with such natural grace that soon Derek couldn't remember what things had been like before her. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were challenges, adjustments to be made. Derek struggled with accepting help, even when Tessa offered it with no strings attached. When his truck finally died beyond repair and Tessa wanted to help him get a new vehicle, Derek initially refused, his pride stinging at the idea of taking what felt like charity. "It's not charity," Tessa said, frustration creeping into her voice. "We're in a relationship, Derek. Partners help each other." "You've already done so much," Derek argued. They were in his apartment, having this conversation in hushed tones while Maya was at school. "You took us out for dinner last week. You bought Maya those art supplies she wanted. I can't keep taking from you." "Taking from me? Derek, do you have any idea how much you've given me?" Tessa's eyes flashed. "You've given me a reason to leave work at a reasonable hour. You've given me family dinners and bedtime stories, and what it feels like to be part of something bigger than myself. You've given me love. So if I want to help you get reliable transportation so you can get to work and take care of your daughter safely, it's not charity. It's me taking care of someone I love." The word hung in the air between them. Love. Neither of them had said it before. "You love me?" Derek asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Tessa said simply. "I love you, I love Maya, I love the life we're building together. And I need you to let me be part of this in all the ways that matter, which sometimes means helping with practical things." Derek crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. "I love you too," he said into her hair. "I'm sorry. I'm not good at accepting help. I've been on my own for so long." "You're not on your own anymore," Tessa said, pulling back to look at him. "That's the whole point." They compromised. Derek agreed to let Tessa co-sign on a loan for a used truck, something reliable but modest, and he insisted on making the payments himself. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start, a way of learning how to blend their lives without either of them losing themselves in the process. There were other adjustments, too. Tessa had to learn that Derek couldn't always be spontaneous, that he had a child who needed structure and routine. Derek had to learn that Tessa's long work hours weren't a sign she didn't care, but rather the reality of running a company. They had their first real fight when Tessa missed one of Maya's soccer games because of an emergency at work. They argued, voices raised in a way that scared Derek because it reminded him of the fights with his ex-wife. But then Tessa had done something his ex-wife never had. She apologized. She explained. She promised to try harder to balance things. And she asked what she could do to make it right with Maya. They worked through it together, coming out stronger on the other side. 8 months into their relationship, Tessa brought up the idea of moving in together. They were at her house, curled up on the couch after putting Maya to bed in one of Tessa's spare bedrooms. Maya had been staying over more and more, and the spare bedroom had gradually transformed into a space just for her, decorated with her artwork and favorite toys. "I know it's a big step," Tessa said, "but you're here most nights anyway, and Maya already has her room here. I want to wake up next to you every morning, Derek. I want us to be a real family." Derek's initial instinct was to worry about Maya adjusting to a new school, about accepting even more from Tessa, about what would happen if things didn't work out. But then he looked around at Tessa's house, which had slowly become their home. He thought about how happy Maya was here, how much she loved having a yard to play in. He thought about how much he loved falling asleep next to Tessa and waking up to her smile. "Okay," he said. "Yeah, let's do it. Let's be a family." The move happened over a month, a gradual process of transferring belongings and adjusting routines. Maya started at a new school, one with better resources and smaller class sizes, and she thrived. Derek's commute to work got longer, but he didn't mind. He was coming home to a house filled with love. Jerry noticed the change in Derek, the lightness in his step, the smile that came more easily. "That lady's been good for you," Jerry observed one day. "Haven't seen you this happy in all the years I've known you." "She's pretty amazing," Derek admitted. "You think it's serious? Long-term?" Derek thought about the ring he had been looking at online, the one he was slowly saving up for, even though Tessa probably could have bought it for herself 100 times over. He wanted to give her something that came from him, something that represented the life they were building together. "Yeah," he said. "I think it's forever." He proposed on a regular Tuesday evening, nothing fancy or elaborate. They were in the kitchen, working together to prepare dinner while Maya did her homework at the table. It was domestic and ordinary and perfect, and Derek suddenly couldn't wait another moment. "Tessa," he said, setting down the wooden spoon he had been using to stir the sauce. She was chopping vegetables, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing jeans and one of his old T-shirts. "I love you. I love the life we've built together. I love how you love my daughter like she's your own. I love coming home to you every day." He pulled the small box from his pocket, where he had been carrying it for a week, waiting for the right moment. "I want to keep doing this for the rest of my life. Will you marry me?" Tessa's knife clattered to the cutting board. She turned, her eyes wide and already filling with tears. "Derek." "I know the ring isn't fancy," Derek said quickly. "And I know you could probably buy yourself something way better, but I saved up for this. I wanted to give you something that came from me." "Daddy, are you asking Miss Tessa to marry us?" Maya had abandoned her homework, watching them with huge eyes. "Yes, sweetheart." "If she says yes, Miss Tessa would become part of our family officially. She'd be my wife and your stepmom. Is that okay with you?" Maya scrambled off her chair and ran to Tessa, throwing her arms around her waist. "Please say yes, please, please, please." Tessa was crying now, happy tears streaming down her face. She knelt down to hug Maya, then looked up at Derek. "Yes, of course, yes. There's nothing I want more than to be part of this family officially." Derek slipped the ring onto her finger, his hands shaking slightly. It was a simple solitaire, modest but elegant, and it looked perfect on her hand. Tessa pulled him down into a kiss, then pulled Maya into the hug too, the three of them standing in a circle in the middle of the kitchen, holding each other tight. They were married 4 months later in a simple ceremony in Tessa's backyard. Maya was the flower girl, taking her job very seriously, concentrating hard on each step down the aisle. Derek's uncle officiated, and Jerry stood up as Derek's best man. Tessa's business partner served as her maid of honor. It was small and intimate, just their closest friends and family, exactly what they both wanted. When Derek said his vows, looking into Tessa's eyes, he meant every word. "I promise to love you in all the ways that matter. To be your partner, your best friend, your home. To work through the hard times and celebrate the good times. To build a life with you that's filled with love and laughter and family. I promise to never take for granted what we have, because I know how rare and precious it is." Tessa's vows were equally heartfelt. "I promise to stand beside you, to support your dreams and share your burdens. To love Maya as my own and to build a family with you that's based on respect and trust and genuine affection. You've given me a life I didn't even know I wanted, and I promise to treasure it every single day." There wasn't a dry eye in the gathering. The reception was held in the backyard, with string lights and a simple buffet dinner. Derek danced with Tessa to their first dance song, holding her close and marveling at how his life had changed. A year and a half ago, he had been struggling just to get by, focused only on survival. Now he had a partner, a true partner who loved him and his daughter unconditionally. Later in the evening, after Maya had fallen asleep on one of the outdoor couches, Derek and Tessa stood together looking out at their guests, at the life they had built. "I can't believe this is real," Derek said softly. "Believe it," Tessa said, squeezing his hand. "You deserve this." "We deserve this. I never thought I'd feel this happy again. After my divorce, I thought maybe I wasn't meant for this, for marriage and partnership. I thought I was better off alone." "You were never meant to be alone," Tessa said. "You were meant to be loved fully and completely. You were meant to have someone who sees how incredible you are." "I'm just a mechanic, Tessa." She turned to face him fully, taking both of his hands in hers. "You're my husband. You're Maya's father. You're the kindest, most genuine person I know. You're the man who stopped to help a stranger in a parking lot without expecting anything in return. That's not just anything, Derek. That's everything." Life settled into a new normal after the wedding. Derek continued working at the shop, turning down Tessa's suggestions that he might want to do something else. He loved his work, loved the satisfaction of fixing things, and Tessa learned to respect that. She did, however, convince him to cut back to 5 days a week instead of 6, giving him Sundays to spend completely with family. Maya flourished. She joined the school art club and started taking piano lessons. Her drawings became more sophisticated, showing real talent. She called Tessa Mom, sometimes now, tentatively at first, then with more confidence when Tessa's face would light up with joy each time. One evening, about 8 months after the wedding, Tessa came home from a doctor's appointment with a strange expression on her face. Derek was in the kitchen starting dinner, and Maya was upstairs doing homework. "Everything okay?" Derek asked, immediately concerned. "I'm pregnant," Tessa said, her voice a mixture of shock and wonder. Derek nearly dropped the pan he was holding. "What? Really? How?" Tessa laughed, some of the tension breaking. "The usual way, I assume. We've been pretty busy in that department." They had talked about having more children eventually, but in the theoretical future, not the right now. Derek's mind raced, calculating, planning, worrying. But underneath all of that was a swell of pure joy. "We're having a baby," he said, the reality sinking in. Then, louder, "We're having a baby." He crossed the kitchen and swept Tessa into his arms, spinning her around before carefully setting her down, suddenly worried about being too rough. Tessa was laughing and crying at the same time. "Are you happy?" she asked. "I know we weren't exactly planning this right now." "Are you kidding? I'm thrilled. Maya's going to be so excited. She's been asking about a little brother or sister." They told Maya that night, sitting her down and explaining that she was going to be a big sister. Maya's reaction was everything they could have hoped for. She squealed, she jumped up and down, she immediately started planning all the things she would teach the baby. "Can I help pick out the name?" she asked. "And can they sleep in my room sometimes? I'll be very careful and quiet." "We'll figure all of that out," Tessa said, pulling Maya onto her lap. "But yes, you'll definitely help with everything. Being a big sister is a very important job." The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Derek was attentive and protective, maybe overly so. He read every book about pregnancy and childbirth he could get his hands on. He went to every doctor's appointment. He helped Tessa when morning sickness hit hard in the early months, holding her hair back and bringing her crackers and ginger tea. They found out they were having a boy. Maya was disappointed for approximately 5 minutes before deciding that having a little brother would be even better because she could teach him about boy things and girl things. They transformed one of the spare bedrooms into a nursery, painting it a soft sage green. Maya helped pick out decorations, insisting on a mobile with stars and moons. Derek assembled the crib with the same careful attention he brought to rebuilding engines, making sure every screw was tight, every surface smooth. 7 months into the pregnancy, Derek came home from work to find Tessa sitting at the kitchen table with papers spread out in front of her, looking troubled. "What's wrong?" he asked immediately. "Nothing's wrong exactly," Tessa said. "I've been thinking about work, about going back after the baby's born. The standard maternity leave is 12 weeks, but Derek, I don't want to leave our son when he's only 12 weeks old. I don't want to miss those early months." "So take more time," Derek said. "We can figure it out financially." "It's not just about the time," Tessa said. "I've been running this company for almost 10 years now. I built it from the ground up. But lately, I've been wondering if maybe it's time for a change. My business partner has been wanting to buy me out for a while now. I could sell my share, step back from the day-to-day operations, maybe work as a consultant, something with more flexibility." Derek sat down across from her. "Is that what you want?" "I think so," Tessa said slowly. "I think I want what you've always had with Maya. I want to be there for the school pickups and the sick days and the ordinary moments. I want to be present. I can't do that and run a company." "Then do it," Derek said simply. "Tessa, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. If you want to step back, step back. We'll be fine." "You're not worried about money," Derek laughed. "Baby, you've been the CEO of a successful company for years. I think we're going to be okay financially even if I'm the only one working for a while." "I'd still want to work," Tessa clarified. Just something less demanding. Maybe I could teach some business classes at the community college. I've always thought that might be interesting. Then that's what you should do, Derek said. Follow your heart. That's what you told me when we first got together, remember? You said I should do work that fulfills me. Same goes for you. Tessa reached across the table and took his hand. How did I get so lucky to find you? I'm the lucky one, Derek said. You stopped with a flat tire and changed my entire life. We changed each other's lives, Tessa corrected. That's how this works. She sold her share of Meridian Enterprises a month before their son was born, stepping away from the company she had built with surprisingly little regret. She had created something successful, had proven herself in a competitive industry. Now she was ready for a different kind of challenge, a different kind of reward. Their son arrived on a rainy Tuesday morning in April. Labor came on fast, and Derek barely got Tessa to the hospital in time. Maya stayed with Derek's uncle, who promised to bring her to meet her new brother as soon as possible. Derek held Tessa's hand through it all, coaching her breathing, telling her how strong she was, how amazing. When their son finally arrived, squalling and red-faced and perfect, Derek cried. He had been there when Maya was born too, but that had been different, complicated by a deteriorating marriage and a partner who didn't really want to be there. This was pure joy, uncomplicated and overwhelming. He's perfect, Tessa said, exhausted and radiant, holding their son against her chest. Derek, we made a person. We made a perfect person, Derek agreed, touching his son's tiny hand with one finger, marveling at the miniature fingernails, the delicate skin. They named him Daniel Thomas Quinn Porter, combining both their last names. Maya arrived a few hours later, bursting into the hospital room with barely contained excitement. She approached the bed carefully, eyes wide with wonder. He's so tiny, she whispered, looking at her baby brother. Can I hold him? Of course, Tessa said. Sit right here and be very gentle. They helped Maya get settled, and Derek carefully placed Daniel in her arms. Maya looked down at her brother with such pure love that Derek had to look away for a moment, his emotions overwhelming him. Hi, Daniel, Maya said softly. I'm your big sister. I'm going to teach you so many things. I'm going to show you how to draw and how to ride a bike and how to be brave when you're scared. I'm going to be the best big sister ever. You already are, Tessa said, her own eyes wet. They went home 3 days later, beginning the exhausting, exhilarating adventure of life with a newborn. Derek took 2 weeks off work, his first real vacation in years. They spent those weeks in a haze of diaper changes and feedings and very little sleep. Maya helped where she could, fetching diapers and singing to Daniel when he cried. Jerry had come through on that raise after securing the Meridian contract, and Derek's uncle had gifted them a substantial check as a baby present, so money wasn't as tight as it had been when Maya was born. But more than that, Derek wasn't doing this alone. Tessa was there, a true partner in every sense of the word. They took shifts with night feedings. They supported each other through the hard moments. They marveled together over every tiny milestone. When Derek went back to work, Tessa stayed home with Daniel, embracing full-time motherhood with the same determination she had brought to running her company. She also enrolled in classes at the community college, working toward a teaching certificate for business education. She wanted to give back, to help other aspiring entrepreneurs the way she wished someone had helped her. Life was busy and chaotic and absolutely full. Their house was always messy, always loud, always filled with love. Maya's artwork covered the walls. Daniel's baby gear took over the living room. There were family dinners and homework sessions and bedtime routines. There were hard days when everyone was cranky and nothing went right. But there were more good days than bad, days filled with laughter and small joys and the deep satisfaction of building a life together. On their second wedding anniversary, Derek and Tessa managed to get away for a rare date night, leaving the kids with Derek's uncle. They went to a nice restaurant, nothing too fancy but nicer than their usual pizza place. Over dinner, they reflected on everything that had happened in the 2 years since their wedding. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is my life," Derek said. "2 years ago, I was a struggling single dad who could barely make ends meet. Now I have a wife I adore, a daughter who's thriving, a baby son, a good job, a beautiful home. It feels like a dream." "It's not a dream," Tessa said, reaching across the table to take his hand. "It's real. It's what happens when good people find each other and choose to build something together." "I love you," Derek said simply. "I know I tell you that every day, but I need you to really hear it. You changed my life in every possible way. You gave me hope when I had forgotten what that felt like. You loved my daughter as your own. You gave me a son. You made me believe I deserved good things." "You always deserved good things," Tessa said. "You just needed someone to show you that. And Derek, you changed my life too. I was successful but empty. I had everything and nothing. You showed me what really matters. You gave me a family, a home, a purpose beyond just making money. I'm happier now than I ever thought possible." They finished their dinner and drove home, arriving to find Daniel asleep and Maya entertaining Derek's uncle with an elaborate puppet show she had created. After his uncle left, they tucked Maya into bed and checked on Daniel, who was sleeping peacefully in his crib. Standing in the doorway of the nursery, watching their son sleep, Derek wrapped his arms around Tessa from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "I used to worry about what I could give you," he said quietly. "What a mechanic could possibly offer a CEO, but I understand now that's not what matters." "What matters?" Tessa asked, leaning back against him. "That we love each other, that we're partners. That we build each other up and work through problems together, that we put our family first. The rest is just details." "The rest is just details," Tessa agreed. She turned in his arms to face him. "Thank you, Derek." "For what?" "For stopping to help me that day. For being brave enough to give us a chance even when you were scared. For being exactly who you are. Thank you for seeing something worth loving in a grease-stained mechanic with a beat-up truck." "I saw everything worth loving," Tessa said, pulling him down for a kiss. "And I always will." The years that followed were filled with the ordinary magic of family life. They watched Maya grow from a little girl into a confident young woman, her artistic talents developing in remarkable ways. Her high school art teacher said she had real promise, that she could have a career in art if she wanted. Maya would just smile and say she wasn't sure yet, that she had time to figure it out. Daniel grew into a rambunctious, curious boy who followed Derek around like a shadow whenever he was working on cars, asking a million questions and getting into everything. Derek taught him about engines with the same patient detail his uncle had taught him, passing down knowledge and skill through generations. Tessa started teaching at the community college when Daniel started kindergarten and discovered she loved it. She loved helping students who reminded her of her younger self, hungry and ambitious, and not quite sure how to turn dreams into reality. She became known as one of the toughest but most beloved professors, demanding excellence, but giving her students the tools and support to achieve it. Derek eventually made shop foreman at Jerry's auto shop, and when Jerry retired, Derek and a couple of the other mechanics bought the business together. It was a risk, but one Derek felt ready to take. Tessa helped with the business plan and financing, putting her expertise to work for something she cared about. The shop thrived under their ownership, building a reputation for quality work and honest service. They had their struggles, of course. There was a year when money was tight because of some unexpected medical bills. There was the time Maya went through a difficult teenage phase and pushed back against every rule and boundary they set. There was Daniel's rough patch in middle school when he struggled to fit in and find his place. There were disagreements and arguments and moments when everything felt overwhelming, but they always came back to each other. They always communicated, always worked through problems together. Derek had learned, through their relationship, that marriage wasn't about never fighting. It was about fighting fair, listening, compromising, and always remembering that you were on the same team. On their 10th wedding anniversary, they renewed their vows in the same backyard where they had been married. Maya, now 16, stood up as Tessa's maid of honor, and Daniel, 11 years old and trying to look serious, was Derek's best man. Their vows were different this time, shaped by a decade of shared life, of knowing each other in all the ways that mattered. 10 years ago, Derek said, his voice steady but emotional, I promised to love you and build a life with you. I've kept that promise every single day, and I promise to keep it for all the days we have left. You are my partner, my best friend, my home. Everything good in my life flows from the decision you made to stop in that AutoZone parking lot with a flat tire. I will never stop being grateful for that moment, for every moment since, and for every moment still to come. Tessa's vows were equally moving. Derek, you taught me what love really means. Not the fairy tale version, but the real thing, the showing up every day version, the working through hard times together version, the choosing each other over and over again version. You've given me a life beyond my wildest dreams, and I promise to cherish and honor that for the rest of our lives. There wasn't a dry eye among their friends and family. Later, after the celebration had wound down and the guests had gone home, Derek and Tessa sat on their back porch swing, watching the stars come out. Daniel was inside playing video games, and Maya was getting ready to go out with friends. The house was full of life and noise and love. Do you ever think about how different things could have been? Tessa asked, her head resting on Derek's shoulder. If I had called someone else that day, if you had just driven past. Sometimes, Derek admitted, but I also think maybe we were meant to find each other. Maybe the universe or fate or whatever you want to call it puts people in each other's paths for a reason. I like that idea, Tessa said. That we were meant to be. We definitely were meant to be, Derek said, kissing the top of her head. You and me and Meyer and Daniel, this family, this life. It's everything I never knew I needed. It's everything, Tessa agreed simply. As they sat together in the gathering darkness, the sound of their children's voices drifting out from the house, Derek thought about the journey that had brought them here. From that first moment in a parking lot, through all the challenges and triumphs, through building a family and a life together. He thought about how close he had come to not stopping that day, to driving past because he was tired and his back hurt and he had his own problems. But he had stopped. He had helped, and that single act of kindness had led to everything that mattered. I love you, he said to Tessa, words he would never get tired of saying. I love you too, she replied, words she would never get tired of hearing. And in that moment, with the stars coming out above them and their family safe and happy inside their home, everything was exactly as it should be. They had built something real and lasting, something that would endure through whatever challenges lay ahead. They had found love in the most unexpected way, and they had nurtured it into something beautiful. The flat tire had been the beginning. But this life they had created together, was everything that mattered. This was their happily ever after, not perfect but real, not easy but worth every challenge. They had each other, they had their children, they had a love that had stood the test of time. And really, what more could anyone ask for? Years continued to pass, each one bringing new adventures and challenges. Maya graduated high school with honors and received a scholarship to study art at a prestigious university. Derek and Tessa helped her move into her dorm, Derek trying hard not to cry as he hugged his daughter goodbye. Maya had grown into a confident, talented young woman who knew she was loved unconditionally by her family. I'm going to miss you so much, Maya said, hugging them both tight. We'll miss you too, Tessa said, but we're so proud of you. Go make amazing art and have incredible experiences. And call us, Derek added. Often? I will, Dad, Maya promised. She hesitated, then said, Thank you, both of you, for everything, for giving me a real family, a happy home, for showing me what love looks like. After they left Meyer at college, Derek and Tessa cried together in the car on the drive home. But they were happy tears, tears of pride and gratitude that they had gotten to raise such an amazing person. Daniel continued to grow, developing his own interests and personality. He inherited Derek's mechanical aptitude, but also Tessa's business sense. By the time he was in high school, he was already talking about studying business and automotive technology, maybe combining them somehow. He wanted to innovate, to build something new. Derek and Tessa supported him, just as they had supported Maya, encouraging him to follow his passions wherever they led. Their lives settled into a new rhythm with Maya away at college. The house was quieter but still full. Derek and Tessa discovered new ways to connect, remembering what it was like to be just the two of them, though now with years of shared history and deep understanding. They traveled more, taking trips they had talked about but never gotten around to. They visited Maya at school, proud to see her artwork displayed in gallery shows. They supported Daniel through his various interests and activities. They continued to work, Derek at the shop and Tessa at the college, both finding satisfaction in their careers. But more than anything, they continued to choose each other, every single day. They had long ago learned that love wasn't just a feeling, it was a choice, a commitment renewed with every sunrise. They chose to be patient with each other's flaws. They chose to celebrate each other's successes. They chose to support each other through difficulties. They chose to keep building the life they had started that day in a parking lot so many years ago. On their 20th wedding anniversary, their children threw them a surprise party. Maya came home from college, and Daniel coordinated everything with the kind of attention to detail that made both his parents proud. The shop was closed for the evening, and all their friends and family gathered to celebrate 2 decades of marriage. Jerry was there, retired now but still keeping tabs on the shop. Derek's uncle was there, older but still sharp, still telling stories that made everyone laugh. Tessa's business partner was there, along with colleagues from the college. The house was packed with people who had been part of their journey. Speech. Someone called out, and soon everyone was chanting for Derek and Tessa to say something. Derek looked at Tessa, and she nodded, so they stood together in front of their family and friends. 20 years ago, Derek began, his voice carrying across the crowded room, I married the love of my life. I married a woman who saw past the grease on my hands to the man underneath. A woman who loved my daughter as her own. A woman who made me believe I deserved happiness. And I married a man, Tessa continued, picking up where Derek left off, who showed me that success wasn't about money or titles. It was about love and family and building a life that matters. A man who stopped to help a stranger and ended up giving me everything I never knew I needed. These 20 years have been the best of my life, Derek said. And I'm looking forward to 20 more and 20 after that, and however many we're lucky enough to get. To love, Tessa said, raising her glass. To family, Derek added. To Mom and Dad, Maya and Daniel said together, and everyone echoed the toast. Later, after the party had ended and they had cleaned up and said goodnight to their children, Derek and Tessa stood in their bedroom, helping each other undress with the comfortable intimacy of 20 years together. That was a good party, Derek said, hanging up his dress shirt. It was perfect, Tessa agreed. Our kids did good. They did. We did good raising them. We really did, Tessa said, and there was wonder in her voice. Derek, do you realize what we've accomplished? We've raised 2 incredible kids. We've built successful careers. We've created a home filled with love. We've made it work when so many people said it couldn't. Did people say it couldn't? Derek asked, pulling Tessa into his arms. At first, some did. My business associates thought I was crazy, dating a mechanic. Some of your friends thought I'd get bored and leave, but we proved them all wrong. We proved that love doesn't care about job titles or bank accounts, Derek said. We proved that what matters is how you treat each other, how you build a life together, how you face challenges as a team. We proved that sometimes the best love stories start in parking lots with flat tires, Tessa said with a smile. Derek laughed and kissed her, soft and sweet and full of the love they had nurtured for 2 decades. "I'd do it all again," he said. "Every moment, every challenge, every joy. I'd do it all again just to end up right here with you." "Me too," Tessa said, "exactly as it happened. Because it led to this, to us, to the life we've built." They climbed into bed, curling together in the familiar way they had perfected over years of shared sleep. Outside, the world kept turning. But inside their home, there was peace and contentment and the deep satisfaction of a love well lived. Derek drifted off to sleep, thinking about that day in the AutoZone parking lot, about the decision to stop and help, about how one small act of kindness had led to everything. His last thought before sleep claimed him was gratitude, pure and simple. Gratitude for Tessa, for their children, for the life they had built together. And beside him, Tessa fell asleep with a smile on her face, thinking about the struggling dad who had helped her fix her flat tire, not knowing she was a CEO who would love him. Not knowing that he would love her right back. Not knowing that they would build a beautiful life together, full of challenges and triumphs and ordinary magic. They had found each other against all odds. They had built something real and lasting. They had created a family bound not just by blood, but by choice and love and commitment. And they had done it all together, partners in every sense of the word. That was their story. That was their love. And it was better than any fairy tale because it was real, earned through years of showing up for each other, of choosing love even when it wasn't easy, of building a life one day at a time. The flat tire had brought them together. But it was love, real and tested and true, that kept them together. And that love would carry them forward through whatever the future held, because they faced it together, always together, now and forever. As Derek and Tessa slept, wrapped in each other's arms after 20 years of marriage, their home stood as a testament to what they had built. A home filled with love and laughter and memories. A home that had started with a chance meeting and grown into something extraordinary. A home that proved that sometimes the best things in life come from the simplest acts of kindness. And that love, when nurtured and chosen every day, could weather any storm and bloom into something beautiful beyond imagining. And they all lived, truly and completely, happily ever after.